What happens when three brothers decide to do paternity DNA tests just for fun and discover a truth that could destroy their entire family? This isn't about ancestry or finding distant relatives. This is about three wealthy sons who secretly tested their father's DNA, expecting to laugh about the results, and instead uncovered their mother's decades of deception. Now one of them is facing an impossible choice: tell their father the devastating truth, or become an accomplice in the biggest lie of his life. The family at the center of this story has everything most people dream of. James is 29, the oldest son. Michael is 26, the middle child. Daniel is 23, the youngest. Their father, Richard, is 58 years old and worth over $50 million from his real estate empire. Their mother, Catherine, comes from generational wealth herself. Multiple mansions, luxury cars, private schools, international vacations. This family lives the life you see in magazines. But beyond the wealth, the three brothers share something rare: they're genuinely close. They work together in the family business, hang out regularly, and consider each other best friends, not just siblings. Their parents seem happily married after more than 30 years together. Richard adores his sons and constantly talks about the family legacy he's building for them. From the outside, and even from the inside, everything appears perfect. About 2 months ago, the brothers kept seeing the same type of video going viral across social media. Paternity reveal videos. Men discovering through DNA tests that they weren't the biological fathers of children they'd raised for years. Dramatic reactions, families falling apart, confrontations with cheating partners. The videos were everywhere, racking up millions of views. The brothers found themselves watching these videos together, half entertained and half horrified by the drama. The stories seemed so extreme, so far removed from their own lives. Michael joked about how wild it would be if they did paternity tests just to see those 99.9% match results confirming what they already knew, that Richard was definitely their father. James thought it could actually be funny. They could film their dad's confusion when they presented him with official paternity test results proving something he already knew. Maybe it would make a good family memory, something to laugh about at future gatherings. But then Daniel suggested something different. What if they did it secretly, without telling their parents? They could get their father's DNA quietly, do the tests, and then surprise him with the results at a family dinner. Imagine his face when they handed him official documents confirming his paternity. It would be hilarious. The brothers ordered 3 paternity test kits online. The process was surprisingly simple. Each kit came with cheek swabs, one set for the potential father, one set for the child. They just needed to collect DNA samples from their father without him knowing. Getting Richard's DNA turned out to be easier than expected. James took a toothbrush from their father's bathroom during a family dinner. Michael collected hair from Richard's hairbrush, making sure to get strands with the roots still attached. Daniel grabbed a coffee mug their father had been drinking from and carefully swabbed the rim. They felt slightly ridiculous doing all this for what they assumed would just confirm the obvious. They even joked about how they were acting like they were in some crime drama, sneaking around collecting evidence when there was no crime to investigate. This was just going to be a funny story, proof of what they already knew, material for a good laugh. Each brother provided his own DNA sample via cheek swab, packaged everything according to the instructions, and sent the kits off to 3 different testing laboratories. They wanted to make sure the results were legitimate, not flukes from a single company. They paid extra for expedited processing because they were planning to reveal the results at their father's upcoming birthday dinner in 6 weeks. 5 weeks later, the results started arriving. James received his first. He was at work when the email notification came through. He opened it expecting to see that 99.9% probability of paternity, ready to forward it to his brothers with some joke about being the favorite son. Instead, the screen showed probability of paternity, 0%. The tested man is excluded as the biological father. James stared at his computer screen, certain there had been a mistake. Lab error. Sample contamination. Wrong results sent to wrong person. Something. He called the laboratory immediately. They confirmed the results were accurate and had been double-checked. Richard was not his biological father. Within hours, Michael's results arrived. Also 0%. Excluded as biological father. The brothers were now in full panic mode when Daniel's results came in that evening. They gathered at James's house to open it together. Daniel's hands were shaking as he pulled up the email on his phone. When the results loaded, there was a moment of relief so intense that Daniel actually laughed. 99.9% probability of paternity. Richard was Daniel's biological father. But that relief lasted only seconds before the full horror of the situation hit them. Daniel was Richard's son, but James and Michael were not. Their mother had been unfaithful at least twice during her marriage, with two different men, resulting in two pregnancies. The brothers spent 3 days in a state of shock, going back and forth about what to do, before they decided they had to confront their mother first. They needed to understand what had happened before they could decide anything else. They invited Catherine to James's house under the pretense of discussing a family vacation. When she arrived, all three brothers were sitting in the living room with the paternity test results printed out and laid across the coffee table. James spoke first, keeping his voice as steady as he could manage. He told her they'd done paternity tests as a joke, expecting to confirm what they'd always believed. Instead, they discovered that he and Michael were not their father's biological sons. Catherine went completely pale. She stared at the papers, then at her sons, then back at the papers. For several long moments, she said nothing at all. Then she started crying, and through the tears, she confessed everything. James's biological father was Richard's former business partner from the early years of building the company. The affair had happened during a period when Richard was traveling constantly, closing deals in other cities, sometimes gone for weeks at a time. The business partner had since retired and moved to Europe. He'd been at James's childhood birthday parties. He'd held James as a baby. Michael's biological father was even more shocking, the family's longtime attorney. A man who still handles all their legal affairs. Someone who comes to family dinners several times a year. Someone who'd watched Michael grow up, knowing the entire time that he was his biological son, but saying nothing. Catherine was sobbing, barely able to get the words out. She admitted she'd made terrible mistakes during times when she'd felt lonely and neglected. She'd never told Richard because she'd convinced herself that ignorance was protection, that what he didn't know couldn't hurt him. She'd spent nearly 3 decades living with this secret, always terrified it would somehow come out. Then she begged them. She grabbed James's hands and pleaded with them not to tell their father. It would destroy him, she said. At his age, learning that two of his three sons weren't biologically his would break him completely. The family would be torn apart. The business would suffer. Their reputation in the community would be ruined. Everything they'd all built together would collapse. That confrontation happened 2 weeks ago. Since then, James has been living in absolute agony, which is why he turned to the internet for advice. He's facing a decision with no right answer, where every option leads to devastating consequences. The case for telling his father is straightforward. Richard deserves to know the truth about his own life. He spent almost 30 years raising, loving, and providing for two sons who aren't biologically his. The three brothers are completely divided on what to do. Michael firmly believes they should keep the secret. He argues that their father is happy right now, that ignorance truly is bliss in this case, and that some truths cause more harm than good. Why destroy a man who's done nothing wrong? Daniel is tormented by indecision. He changes his mind multiple times a day. Sometimes he thinks their father absolutely deserves to know. Other times he imagines actually sitting down with his dad and speaking the words that would destroy him, and Daniel just can't picture himself doing it. He's paralyzed by the weight of the decision. James is leaning toward telling the truth, but he's terrified. He feels like every day that passes makes him more complicit in the lie. But he's also aware that once he speaks these words, they can never be taken back. The destruction would be permanent and total. None of them asked for this knowledge. They weren't investigating anything. They weren't suspicious. They just wanted to have some fun with a trending social media concept. And instead, they're trapped holding information that could destroy everyone they love. So that's where James and his brothers are right now. Stuck between a truth that would devastate everyone and a lie that's eating them alive from the inside. Whatever they choose, someone will be destroyed. There is no good option here. There is no choice that doesn't lead to pain. What would you do in their position? Would you tell your father the truth and watch your family implode? Or would you keep the secret, protect your father from unbearable pain, but carry the guilt for the rest of your life? Let me know in the comments what you think, because this might be one of the most impossible moral dilemmas I've ever encountered. Sometimes DNA tests don't give you fun results to share on social media. Sometimes they give you knowledge you can never escape from. and choices that will haunt you forever. Don't forget to click the subscribe button for more anonymous tales.